coming down in Richmond, Virginia. A statue of Robert E. Lee removed, but where will it go now so we don't repeat history? And 4 members of the new Taliban government released from Guantanamo Bay in exchange for deserter Bo Bergdahl. We have a national security analyst who's fired up about that. Great to have you with us. The Donlon Report starts right now. Well, we like to start here on the Donlon Report with the pulse of America, something we're all talking about. And tonight, as America prepares to mark the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks, here's the question. Did the events of that day change the U.S. for the better or the worse? According to a new Washington Post ABC poll, an increasing number of Americans think 9/11 had a more negative than positive impact on the country. Now, you may hear that and think, well, sure, that makes sense. But the numbers tell an interesting story. First, 80% say the events of that day changed the country in a lasting way. That's understandable. But nearly half say 9/11 changed the country for the worse. 33% say it changed for the better. Keep those numbers in mind. We'll get back to them. But in the meantime, let's go back 20 years and think about how 9/11 brought the country together. American flags flying in neighborhoods, the nation collectively asking each other how we were doing, sharing stories, sharing the shock, easing the pain. We were sympathetic, empathetic, united. The poll numbers at that time bore that out as well. A year after the attacks in 2002, 55% thought 9/11 changed the country for the better. Just 27% thought for the worse. A lot has changed, no doubt, and maybe some of the issues we've faced since 9/11 have given us reason to worry, maybe about our safety and also our health. Saturday will be an emotional day for all of us, filled with images that will instantly take us back to that September morning. What is the pulse of America 20 years after 9/11? What's changed? Why are we so divided? That's where we start tonight. We're going to talk with a Gold Star widow who lost her husband in Afghanistan and our own Marky Martin about the lasting impact of the attack in a minute. But first, we want to go to Mark Fisher, our friend with the Washington Post. Mark, based on your paper's poll, the farther we get away from 9/11, the more people think we've changed for the worse, and it's trending downward. So why do you think that is?
Well, it is interesting because this number has shifted pretty consistently over the last 20 years. We're united in thinking that 9/11 had a tremendous impact on us, and of course we're right about that, but we're divided, and it did go from a majority thinking that 9/11 had brought us together to now a majority saying that it has made life worse. There is an insecurity and anxiety to American life that has been there for the last 20 years. We all see it every day. We see it when we travel. We see it when we enter an office building and have to show ID. Constant reminders of the anxiety that was prompted by the attack on that day. I remember on that morning here in Washington when no one knew what was going on. No one knew just how desperate and dangerous the attack really was. People came together. I saw people giving strangers rides home, sharing their cell phones with people who were urgently needing to reach their families. It's hard to imagine that kind of unity today, given the divisions in the country.
Well, that leads perfectly to what I was going to ask you next, which is how do we get back to that point where we're asking each other in the elevator how we're doing?
Well, it's really a matter of trust, isn't it? I mean, that's what we've lost. That's what's become redefined over these 20 years. We used to trust in institutions, in authorities, experts, scientists, professors, that sort of thing. Those numbers have tumbled over the last 20 years, and yet we haven't lost all trust. We trust different things. We trust things very strangely now. We trust getting into a car with a random driver. We call it Uber. We trust going on Facebook with friends when we know that millions of other people can get that data. So our definition of trust has changed, and we need to get it back to something that's local in our communities.
Yeah, the part of this poll that was interesting, Mark, was that when Americans were asked about our safety from terrorism, our confidence in that area has been slipping, even though we haven't had a major attack. How do you account for that?
Well, I think we see the turmoil in the world. We see the division among our politicians. We see their inability to get things done because they're catering to their bases on the left and the right. And so when we see that, we think, well, are these the people who are going to keep us safe? And it's hard to have confidence about that when they're sniping at each other to the extent that they do these days. So I think that's a piece of it. Then there's also simply the matter of seeing what's happening in Afghanistan and other hot spots around the world. The reaction we've seen to the messy withdrawal from Afghanistan is clearly, I think, a reflection of that anxiety we have about our own security and about the prospect of terrorism coming back to our shores.
It was an interesting poll, certainly gave us something to think about. And Mark Fisher, we appreciate you joining us to explain it. Take care.
Thank you.
Shifting gears a bit here now to the families of fallen U.S. service members known as Gold Star families. Many of them lost loved ones to the war in Afghanistan, part of the response to the attacks on the World Trade Center. These families have written a letter to America and the country's leaders as well, saying the Pentagon team that manages them hasn't protected them and refuses to listen to them. Joining me now, one of the Gold Star family members who co-signed that letter, Jenny Taylor. Jenny, it's great to have you with us. I really appreciate your time. I want to know more about your husband. Tell me a little bit more about how he was the mayor of Ogden. We know that of West Ogden, I guess, North Ogden, I should say. He'd already done 3 tours. Why did he want to go back?
It was in his blood. I don't think he could stay home. I've even found a journal entry of his where it said, "I can't stay back if my country's at war." He was raised in a very patriotic home, very faithful, very God-fearing, and I believe he really felt this was part of his life's mission, was to stand up for freedom and democracy, not just at home, but wherever he was needed. And I supported him wholeheartedly in that. We were married 15 years. He had 4 combat deployments and the rest of the time in the Utah Army National Guard. Like you mentioned, he did serve as the mayor of our hometown of North Ogden, Utah. So he really was just a citizen soldier, a statesman, and a patriot above all else.
Well, that is so well put. But having been on 3 tours, you have 7 kids. I think everyone, Jenny, would have understood if you had said, listen, I'd rather you stay home. Were you okay with him going?
Sure, you know, that was a question I get asked a lot, and it's a question he and I only asked ourselves the first time. I remember a very tearful, thoughtful, prayerful conversation before his first deployment. I was then expecting our first child, and that's where we really kind of had that put your money where your mouth is moment. We both love this country, we love freedom, we love America, and now we knew it would be separating our family. Again, 15, 16 years ago was the first time we really dove into that. Once we made that decision, there was no going back. I know my husband truly believed some things really were worth dying for, and I'd die next to him by his side if I were called upon to do so. And so I say all of the time, we have a lot of heartache, but no regret for his service and his sacrifice.
Wow, that's powerful. Jenny, let me ask you about this letter to America that you co-signed on to, asking for action and accountability, basically. Put a voice to this for us. What is the main thing you want?
I think the main thing, like you said, action and accountability. You know, it's easy to take a broad brush and say no one's listening, no one cares, no one's done anything. And that's not fair. There are those who listen. There are those who care. But there are a lot of bureaucratic steps. There's a lot of paperwork. There's a lot of the process that could be improved. There's a lot of people who maybe are listening, but we're not seeing the action. There's a lot of heartache in the Gold Star community. Families who have buried a soldier or a sailor, a Marine or airman draped in a flag-draped casket that have kind of those emotions of wondering, was it worth it? Did my person give their life for nothing, for in vain? I'm quick to say absolutely it was worth it. Again, I believe some of those things are worth dying for. I think now it's on us as Americans to make sure that we're living for those same principles, whether it's in the government, where it's in the Pentagon, or even just in our regular homes and neighborhoods. And so I think this letter really is a call to action. I would call it a wake-up call more than anything, and not just to the Pentagon or any one bureaucracy in this country, but really to the American people. Look at what sacrifice is. Look what the price of freedom is. Look at children like mine who are growing up without a father, and then find some way to act on those feelings that you feel. Help each other, reach out. Let's set politics aside and really look at how we can improve our policies, improve our procedures, and be that not only for our surviving families, but for the family of our living military men and women. They need us just as much.
Sure. Jenny, let me get you, before we let you go, on the plans for the Global War on Terror Memorial on the National Mall. You've been working on this for years. What's the holdup?
I think the holdup is in Congress, to be honest. There's a couple of congressmen who maybe sit in positions of leadership that could get this thing to a hearing, and it's been held up. We have bipartisanship support. The actual Global War on Terrorism Memorial on a national level was passed by Congress in 2017. We've already decided we're having one. We only need private funding. It will not cost Congress or the taxpayer a dime. Now we just need to get it to a vote. Once we have a vote, I am confident we will have bipartisanship support. The American people will support putting a memorial to this war war on the Mall in Washington, D.C., where the memorials to our other war and war fighters are. It's just got to get through a vote. It's got to get through some of those committees. And it's September. The clock is ticking. I hope we see that happen before this calendar year ends and we have to start all over again next year.
Yeah, Jenny, I know you're joining us from the fairgrounds there in Utah. Tell us a little bit about the plans for 9/11 on Saturday.
You know, we're doing what we call Weber Remembers. I live in a county called Weber County, and we remember here. We remember what 9/11 was about. We remember the sacrifices made. We're working with our firefighters, our police officers, our medical professionals, and military personnel to come together. We've created an immersive museum experience with 300 photos that are 4 feet by 8 foot, 20 television screens, 30 directional sound areas so that you really walk back in time. And then we've created a service exhibit where you come in and there's a bunch of vendors, not to sell you a product, but to give you a chance to serve. Right here in northern Utah, everyone listening has a way to serve close to home. We don't have to go overseas to save the day. We can start right where we are. And that's what we're doing this weekend in Ogden, Utah.
Yeah, and I know it looks like, from what I've seen, a very powerful display. I know that there are a lot of high school students who are going through who weren't around back on September 11th, 2001, and they're learning an awful lot. Jenny Taylor, what a wonderful voice you are for the cause, and we appreciate you sharing it with us tonight.
Thank you. Thanks for letting me be part of this important conversation.
You bet. Great to have you. Continuing our conversation now on how America has changed since 9/11, from long TSA lines to taking our shoes off before we get on the plane. Flying's been one of the most affected sectors, no question. Joining me now for more on that is NewsNation's Marky Martin. So, Marky, September 11th, just around the corner here for us. Talk about the ways flying has changed for Americans since the terror attacks.
Well, Joe, the biggest change post 9/11 inarguably is security. You know, just 2 months after the Twin Towers came down, President George W. Bush signing the legislation that would eventually create TSA, which we're all familiar with at this point. You know, before TSA, it was just these private companies that were hired by the airlines, the airports to handle security. Well, from TSA, that birthed the TSA pre-checks, the global entries of the world. And now post 9/11, you have any item that could be wielded as a weapon is either banned or scanned, from the box cutters that terrorists use to even the belt that everybody has to take off going into those full body scanners through security checkpoint lines. Post the 2001 shoe bomber. That's why everybody has to take off their shoes right now going through the airport. But despite all these measures that have been put into place, are we actually safer post these attacks? And I talked to a travel analyst today, and this was his response.
And there are plenty of people who call it security theater. But we have not had a successful 9/11 style attack since. There have been attempts. None of them have been successful. The other thing that has come together is there's better information sharing, intelligence sharing.
So, Marky, have you been able to determine how efficient the TSA has been at thwarting attacks?
Well, Joe, I can take you back a few years. You know, in 2015, there was this undercover investigation conducted by Homeland Security that found that 95% of the time, TSA agents failed at identifying mock explosives or banned weapons at those checkpoints. In fact, the findings were so egregious that you had a lot of members of Congress voicing their concerns. And still to this day, a lot of critics of the TSA consider it to be security theater. However, the TSA completely dismissing that moniker, pointing to last year, saying, hey, we confiscated more than 3,000 guns, many of which, more than 80% of which were loaded. And the administrator saying, you know what, there's so much that goes on behind the scenes that everyday passengers are not privy to. And lastly, Joe, just 30 minutes ago, the TSA writing me back, telling me that every day, 365 days a year, they send thousands of federal air marshals aboard domestic and international flights just to make sure everything is safe and secure. Joe.
All right, Marky, thank you very much for the update. After a tumultuous summer, President Biden's approval ratings are tanking. What this could mean for the Democrats in the midterms next year. The Robert E. Lee statue on historic Monument Avenue in Richmond taken down today, the last of 5 statues commemorating Confederate generals to be removed. But as the statue comes down, it's important to remember our nation's history. So do you know which statue still remains? There's one. We'll have that ahead. And don't forget to follow us on social media at the Donlon Report on Twitter. It was a tough August for President Biden, from the chaotic exit from Afghanistan to the rise of the Delta variant to a slowdown in job growth. The Washington Post says Biden badly needs a new beginning, while Politico says there's no good news for Biden after a rough summer, putting Democrats on high alert. A new Civics poll shows Mr. Biden's approval rating has now slipped to 41%, to the lowest of his young presidency. And tonight, President Biden's approval rating is underwater in 7 key congressional districts. Now, these are GOP-aligned polls, but they do show Biden's net approval rating averaging -7 points in those 7 districts, spanning 6 states. Joining me now in studio, former press secretary for House Democrats Rochelle Ritchie and co-founder of Paloma Media, Nancy Raumerman. Thank you both for being here. Rochelle, let's start with you. Are these numbers, do you think, going to drag down the president's agenda and the party next year?
I hope not, but you also have to think about the fact that this is also a redistricting year as well. So we are going to see some lines changing, some congressional lines changing, and that's going to have an impact on Democrats already. So now they're going into this with Joe Biden having these very low approval ratings. And I think it's important to point out that these approval ratings, the drop is really because of independents. It went from 46% approval rating to 36% approval rating. So it's not necessarily that he's losing within his own party. Is that he is losing with independents, who are those swing voters, and that could be detrimental to the Democrats during the midterms for sure.
Is this Afghanistan, do you think, primarily? And how does he fix it?
I think it's Afghanistan. I think a lot of it is Afghanistan. The reason why is because this poll is coming out right after we saw everything that happened. Emotions were running high, but also you have COVID-19. And I think that the Democrats, especially with Joe Biden, they've got to get a stronger message out there, and they have to find a way to unite the unvaccinated and the vaccinated and find sensible ways where it doesn't seem like they're blaming other Americans or those 50% of Americans that are not vaccinated. Because it's not just because they don't want to get vaccinated. For some people, it is religious reasons or health concerns.
All right, Nancy, let's bring you in on this. 7 swing districts in trouble, according to these polls. You want to handicap the midterms for us? Is it too early?
I'm not going to handicap the midterms, but what I am going to say is that, you know, as much as Democrat or Republican operatives would like things to go a certain way for their guy or their gal, you know, events have a way of interceding. You know, I think we did have some control in Afghanistan about leaving and how we left, and it probably could have rolled out better. And so that will affect some people. But COVID, I think, is the big one. People, you know, I think Biden is going to have a press conference tomorrow or make an announcement about maybe some new ways that we're going to address it. But you've just got people continually insecure. And we're at a point now where we're actually going like at each other's throats about this. I mean, we saw some of the stuff that's happened in school districts, you know, people just marching in and saying, I am not going to wear a mask. Some data came out, I think, yesterday saying, you know, people being behind masks is down 20%. It's hard to keep up with this and to look like you're doing the right thing when, you know, the virus to a certain extent has been politicized and is, to another extent is in control.
What do you want to hear from the president tomorrow?
Well, I think he's got to get some good return on investment in terms of how he is appealing to people. We've had some campaigns, which I think, I mean, we had like a TikTok guy out of the White House. I don't know exactly who it was meant to appeal to. I think you have to have someone, a friend of mine said, you know, get someone with a lot of great data and get him to go on Joe Rogan or somebody that's got a big, you know, sort of somewhat skeptical base, but also receptive base. We've got to get people vaccinated. You know, the vaccines really work. And I think if we can get politics out of it, people will know that and get vaccinated.
Let's move to the next subject and tell a story that our producer told us about today. He was visiting Richmond and went to see Monument Avenue, which he said was absolutely beautiful and spectacular. And when he asked for directions, he was pointed away from the Arthur Ashe statue. He didn't even realize it was there. He did go back later just to see it. But as we're seeing here now, the Robert E. Lee statue was just taken down this morning. And here's some of what the people who were there for this today said.
It just represents some level of physical, you know, representation of acceptance. The country's finally accepting that's not our hero and never was.
We're no longer proud of that Confederate history. We know that history is there. We're not erasing that history, but removing that symbol is just that. It's removing the symbol.
Rochelle, people may not realize this, but That Arthur Ashe statue is the only one on Monument Avenue still standing today. So what does that say about where we are in this issue?
I think it says that we still don't get it. I do not think that removing statues of Confederates is really going to do anything to address systemic racism in this country. What we want is we want bills on the table. We want legislation that says that you are not going to be able to brutalize people of color and Black Americans in this country without some sort of penalty. This is optics. This has absolutely nothing, in my opinion, to do with really addressing the issues of police brutality and the criminalization of Black Americans in this country. And so it's great they got the statue removed, but as the last man in that interview said, it doesn't change the history. It doesn't change anything at all.
Nancy, has this gotten us to the point where maybe we shouldn't put Lee on a pedestal? We know that, but should he be in a museum?
You know, first of all, I agree with Rochelle completely. And I also think that you kind of should put it in museum. You know, we shouldn't forget history. We absolutely should not forget our mistakes. We don't have to have them in our eyeballs all the time, every time we drive the car. But you should be able to talk to the previous generations and say, look, and just here's an example of what we used to venerate. I did, and I agree, it's optics. And, you know, it's kind of easier to do optics than it is to do hard work. We see that often. But I did read a quote in the Washington Post today that I thought was a little bit touching, which was when the statue was erected, somebody said, and it will be a Black man that takes it down. And in fact, the contractor that took it down today was Black. And I think, you know, for whatever it's worth, that did make people feel good.
All right, let's move to our third and final topic. And this one, Nancy, we'll start with you on. It's the Texas abortion law. There's been some back and forth between Texas and a city you and I both know well, Portland. We both spent a lot of time there. Essentially, Portland's planning to protest by banning goods and services from the Lone Star State. But at the same time, the lieutenant governor of Texas responded saying, bottom line, Portland's a dumpster fire and Texas is thriving. So the air is pretty fresh there, Nancy. I know you were just there recently, as was I. Does he have a point at least about the problems?
Well, I don't know if I would call it dumpster fire, but I was there 2 days ago, and talk about going for optics as opposed to going to change. And I put on Twitter, it reminds me kind of like of a teenager. Like, you're going to make this big show of like how compassionate you are, and you're like standing with your people. Meanwhile, your room is a mess. You didn't gas up mom's car. Portland has a lot of problems. And I think instead of sort of like coming out and showing, you know, you're in solidarity, which actually does absolutely nothing for the law, work on your problems, gain your own tensile strength and commitment to your people, and then go out and try to help other people that you feel need help. I think the city council's move is more sort of showboating on the part of the city council in Portland.
Rochelle, is this showboating or is it bare knuckle politics?
Well, when I saw the tweet that he put out and he said that Portland doesn't care about police and doesn't care about babies, I thought to myself, well, you don't care about sexual assault victims. You don't care about employees, because it's not necessarily these big corporations and the people that own them that are really going to be impacted. It's those workers. It's the people that are working for these companies that are going to be impacted. And so I would say back to the Texas, you know, Lieutenant Governor, you don't care about sexual assault victims and you don't care about workers.
Coming from a strategist and a former press secretary, they might use your help, I'm sure. Rochelle Ritchie, it's always good to have you. Nancy Rommelman, thanks for your time as well. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Joe.
You are being watched, or at least a lot more often since 9/11. Freedom versus security. 20 years later, we'll get into that. And they were once called the worst of the worst. Now, 4 former Guantanamo detainees are being called Taliban government officials. We'll discuss that ahead. 9/11 changed the way America fights terrorism, but it also changed how police fight crime. Technologies like facial recognition, surveillance drones, license plate readers, even X-ray vans that can see inside vehicles have become common tools police use. The paper also reporting that there are enough surveillance cameras near Washington Square Park in New York to monitor 80% of a common protest route. The New York Times putting it this way: it's almost impossible to overstate how profoundly the attacks changed American policing. Is it too much of a watchful eye, or one we need today? Because police aren't just watching potential terrorists, they might be watching you too. David Katz, special federal special agent. He now heads Global Security Group. And Tom Ruskin's a former NYPD detective, now president of CMP Protective and Investigative Group. Gentlemen, it's great to have you. Tom, let's start with you. I'm sure you've heard this. Defend it for us. Are we sacrificing too much privacy for security?
Not at all. I mean, we learned from London after the terrorist attacks in London and the Ring of Steel. We learned from London that this was an important thing. So the NYPD and other cities around this country have taken that technology and expanded it. What the NYPD was able to do is tap into private cameras and have a command center where they watch to see any suspicious activity around the city.
So, David, the argument, I guess, would be then that if you're not committing a crime, you don't have anything to fear. But critics say this is an overreach. What do you say?
Well, you got to make a distinction between your expectation of privacy in the public square as opposed to what you are entitled to under the Constitution in your home and personal effects. The ability of law enforcement to monitor surveillance cameras, to use technology to, for example, identify a suspicious truck that you believe may be on the way to perpetrate a bombing. These are incredibly vital tools. Mm-hmm. What is troubling to me is how some agencies, and we all know who we're talking about, have abused, for example, the FISA process and other processes to invade the privacy of individuals who are not criminals, who are not terrorists. You know, the NSA is supposed to be a very closely guarded, closely controlled agency that only monitors terrorism outside this country and then is very narrowly focused once you identify an American citizen being involved. And unfortunately has gone well beyond that.
So it sounds, Tom, like, as I read it anyway, a lot of these tools that we use for terrorism have been essentially repurposed now to fight crime. How critical have they become in doing that?
Oh, incredible. I mean, and to David's point, if people abuse them, then, you know, obviously we have to, as a government, watch them and as people watch what our government's doing. But relative to the fighting of crime, it brings people to justice. If you don't have an expectation of privacy in public. And what the police departments and law enforcement is now doing is basically watching to see if some suspicious activity is happening on the streets in our country and basically bringing law enforcement to that point. The same thing with when you have the gun readers, when a shot goes off right, and it targets where the gunshot went off and sends police to that area to potentially catch a shooting in progress or catch the shooter.
David, how much do these tools help solve crimes that in the past would have gone unsolved, without a doubt?
No, the ability to solve just regular common crimes is exponentially increased. You know, we put, for example, we use, let's say, license plate readers. Mm-hmm. And the purpose might have been, look, if we identify a vehicle we think is going to be used to perpetrate a vehicle-borne explosive situation, that's one thing. But at the same token, you have a report of shots fired in a getaway car with such and such a plate. You have a robbery or some other violent act. You can use those devices to say, okay, what vehicles were in the area at that time? And just they're used just to solve burglaries and property crimes, violent crimes perpetrated against individuals. It's extraordinarily helpful.
Yeah, and I'm guessing, Tom, that if someone were watching this on the flip side of this, and they were a victim of a crime, and they knew you had all of these tools, and they had surveillance video to catch the suspects, you'd want the police to use it.
We see it every single day with all the videos that are posted of people stealing packages because that individual had a ring or a similar device in the front of their house, and they post it, and then the police have a lead. Police now canvass areas right after a crime, to David's point, and basically can almost tie the person to the crime within hours of a time of a serious crime being committed.
David, we've talked about the technology, but how has policing in general changed since 9/11?
Well, I mean, you have units like, for example, I'm sure, as Tom is well aware, NYPD has, as far as all the city police agencies in the country, they've actually gone a step further than most. They have officers in London, they have officers in Israel, they have actually their own counter-terror group that is processing information that formerly would have had to been filtered by the FBI and some other agencies. So, the traditional, well, I have a burglary, my car was broken into, I call the police. That's only that still remains. But now law enforcement is the primary and first response in the war against acts of terror, and the officers are being trained to do just that in addition to all the crimes that are never going to go away.
Tom will give you the last word. How it's changed since 9/11.
It's changed for the better. I mean, listen, people are a lot more fearful of what could happen in our country because they're much more out there. The media has it. But basically, law enforcement has improved on the federal and state and local level to a point never thought of prior to 9/11.
David Katz, former federal special agent, and Tom Ruskin, former NYPD detective. Great insight from both of you. We appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Pleasure. It's all time.
Now to Afghanistan. I want to introduce you to some of the people U.S. government officials used to call the worst of the worst. These are 4 of the one-time Guantanamo detainees that the U.S. released in a prisoner exchange for American military deserter Bo Bergdahl. They spent 13 years in the military camp. Now we're going to introduce you to some of the new Taliban government leaders in Afghanistan. Here they are, 4 of the newest Taliban government officials. Look familiar? One, now the Taliban's acting director of intelligence. Bill Roggio is the editor of Long War Journal and a senior fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Bill, you've been quite active on Twitter talking about this. The Taliban government may be new, but a lot of the names are not.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. This is the same old Taliban. We did a rundown of these individuals. Most of these individuals who are members of the Taliban government today were members of the Taliban government from 1996 to 2001. The 4 individuals you spoke of right here were actually held at Guantanamo Bay and released in exchange for Bo Bergdahl, the U.S. soldier who defected in, I believe it was 2009 or 10. The U.S., I mean, to me, it's stunning. This is a perfect example of how the U.S. did not understand the enemy, the NATO as well, and did not take out the Taliban leadership because they all sat on a shelf inside Pakistan and prepared for the day that they directed their insurgency, and they were successful. The U.S. left. They got the U.S. to leave. They tired us out after nearly 20 years of war, and they returned.
Yeah. So what are the optics of this, Bill? Essentially, we're going to be negotiating with people we once held prisoner.
Yeah, the optics are horrible. This administration, the Biden administration made a monumental mistake, not necessarily in withdrawing. I'm actually sympathetic because our strategy in Afghanistan was horrific. Our military commanders and our political leaders have been incompetent. The last 3 administrations' policy for Afghanistan was to leave, so you're never going to have success in any way, shape, or form under those terms. But how he left set the Afghan government up for failure, and it put these individuals in charge. And now that there's Americans trapped, and there's hundreds, I'm hearing over 1,000 Americans who want to leave Afghanistan.
So how do you leave, Bill, without leaving some forces there to prop up what we had in the government and the Afghan forces?
Yeah, it would have needed to be a change of mission. So the problem with this all along is the debate has been, how many troops are we going to have in Afghanistan? Well, if I would have said we're going to have 5,000 troops in Afghanistan and they were all cooks, what difference would that have made? We needed the right force structure to do the mission. And if that was to prop up an Afghan government, then that's what the mission needed to be. But if it was going to be withdraw, we needed to withdraw in a way that prepared the Afghan government to defend itself, because it was dependent wholly on the United States for air support. And we needed to wean them off that, not pull the rug out, and expect the Afghans to just remain on their feet.
All right,
that's what happened here, and that's why they failed.
Right. Bill Roggio, editor of Long War Journal and a senior fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Bill, it's good to see you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
More migrant caravans are heading to the U.S., what it means for the U.S. and Mexican communities along the border. We'll get into that. And do you recall? That's the question. Next week in California, as Democratic bigwigs head there to give Governor Gavin Newsom a hand. Will he hang on? That's ahead. Just weeks after the Supreme Court ordered the Biden administration to reinstate the Remain in Mexico policy, the White House is reportedly considering its own version of that practice, one President Biden claims is more humane. Joining me now with more from the border, Sandra Sanchez with Border Report. Sandra, let's start with what we're hearing now about this Remain in Mexico policy and where it stands and what's happening in practicality at the border tonight.
Thanks for having me. I'm in downtown McAllen, and behind me is the Humanitarian Respite Center, where many migrants often come for a little bit of relief. If the Migrant Protection Protocols program is implemented, this facility could be empty like it was in 2019 when President Trump implemented the policy forcing thousands of migrants back over the border. But we have been told that the policy has not started yet. U.S. Representative Henry Cuellar on the Homeland Security's Appropriations Committee said that the policy has not been implemented because the Biden administration is trying to ensure that the migrants are given safely quarters to live in, as well as legal access to lawyers. And a Border Patrol agent also told me tonight that they have no orders to send people back across the river under MPP.
Okay, we're also seeing, Sandra, some of the caravans that we've heard about. We've seen them being broken up in southern Mexico. Are you hearing more about the other caravans that are reportedly heading to the U.S.?
Right now, there are no caravans coming, but there's always the potential. Migrants are getting desperate. Thousands of them are on the southern border of Mexico in Tapachula. But Mexico's taking a hard line, and they're forcing them back. They're not allowing them to come north, which people here and local leaders here say credit Mexico for stopping the migrants from getting this far.
All right. Sandra Sanchez, thanks for your time in McAllen. Good to see the buses are running on time. We appreciate it. Take care. The fate of California Governor Gavin Newsom will be decided next week as voters decide whether to recall him or keep him. So what exactly pushed California to this point? Most notably, a fancy and expensive dinner with lobbyists at the height of the state's lockdown. Governor Newsom saying the event was outside when it wasn't. Critics and Californians cried hypocrisy and elitism. The New York Times put it this way in a headline: Gavin Newsom, what were you thinking? Meantime, as public schools were shuttered across the state, Newsom sent his kids to private school in person with a teacher in a classroom. And then there was this. For a time when the state ordered many wineries to close, Gavin Newsom's winery remained open. One newspaper calling it sour grapes, another paper going with the pithy grapes of wrath. And more recently, Newsom had to pull his son from summer camp after photos on social media showed no masks. One group tweeting, "This is in clear violation of his own mask mandates. Why can his kid be maskless, but not ours?" Mo Kelly is host of the Mo Kelly Show in California. He's our voice for all things out there west. Mo, despite all of this, polls point to Newsom probably hanging on. What do you think tonight, 6 days out?
Yeah, if you were to just bet the percentages, they're probably in the governor's favor. Let's look at this from a larger scale. If you want to think of California, it's like Alabama, but in reverse. We're bitterly partisan. California writ large is very far left. And if we were trying to recall KIV in Alabama, you probably wouldn't get a lot of help from Republicans. So think about that in California. You're not going to get a lot of help from Democrats, who are overwhelmingly the larger party in terms of registrations. So the Republicans will need help from Democrats, and they probably won't get a lot. So they need a decreased turnout.
Well, especially now that the state is sending out stimulus checks. They just went out. Has that improved Newsom's outlook at all?
Absolutely. Newsom can tout at least a $38 billion surplus, which he's giving back to Californians. It may be transparent, but it's still good politics because people still vote as a reflection of their pocketbooks. And also the Democrats are trying to make this election as big as possible, as much notoriety as possible. They're bringing out the big guns. You might have seen Senator Elizabeth Warren. You'll probably see Vice President Harris at some point.
Well, she was there today, as we understand, Mo. So
there we go.
Yeah, so let's play a little bit of that for you because she was stumping from Newsom. Here's a clip.
Who is Gavin Newsom to make hard decisions in a moment of crisis that was unpredictable, and he led. This recall campaign is about California, and it's about a whole lot more.
So to your point, Mo, President Biden goes in on Monday, I believe, a day before the election. And Larry Elder, as you know, who is the leading replacement candidate, has brought up a new factor here. What happens if Senator Dianne Feinstein steps down? She's 88 years old. Elder said that he would obviously appoint a Republican. There are a lot of what ifs here, but that was something that not a lot of people were thinking about. It could be a critical shift in the Senate.
That he's factually accurate, and I'm actually surprised that Larry Elder brought that up, because if anything, that would incentivize Democrats to also vote and know that the Biden agenda would be on the line if, for example, Senator Feinstein were to retire early before the end of this gubernatorial term. So now Democrats know that there is a national interest in this election, and I don't know if that was a smart move to highlight that.
That's what this hinges on, doesn't it, Mo? Because we keep hearing that Republicans are more motivated to vote in this election on Tuesday. Democrats may not be as much. How do you think that plays out, and is that critical?
I think Democrats are not as motivated. I think that is factually accurate. But at the same time, there's more and more interest among Democrats because we are still bitterly partisan. And if you say that, hey, the Biden agenda could go down in flames if Larry Elder wins, then that will motivate some Democrats. And also acknowledge that Governor Newsom is making this a distinct two-person race, him and Larry Elder.
Right.
So if you don't like Larry Elder, get out there and vote, he's saying.
We'll find out what happens on Tuesday. Mo Kelly, always good to see you. Thanks for the time.
Thank you, Joe.
In tonight's American Snapshot, 2 young boys pay their respects to a veteran as America remembers those lost in Afghanistan. That's tonight's American Snapshot ahead. In tonight's American Snapshot, some video and images we wanted to make sure you saw tonight because they are powerful and they're important. 2 Marines who died in the Kabul terror attack returned home today. Marine Lance Corporal Jared Schmitz's body arrived in St. Louis today and was met by a parade of people paying their respects, even shutting down the highway in a powerful show of respect and support, again, for Marine Lance Corporal Schmitz. Similar show of support for U.S. Navy Hospital Corpsman Maxton Soviak in northern Ohio today. Soviak posthumously awarded the Purple Heart by the Navy for his service today, which leads us to this. 2 boys in Indiana on a bike ride. You remember these days, not a care in the world. But something suddenly became more important. They passed a funeral. That funeral was for 89-year-old Charles Everett Yorn, a military veteran who served in the Army. A witness, Jackie Hornbach, took this picture and posted it on Facebook. Not of Charles, but we'll share it here more in a second. As the boys jumped off their bikes and waited patiently for a few minutes, and then taps began to play. And that's when they both stood with arms behind their backs silently the entire time. Hornbach wrote, it was so natural for them. She debated posting it, but in the end said it made her realize that there is so much good left in this world. Call it integrity, call it character. It's what people do when no one's looking. And these 2 kids embody all of it. We salute them and Charles Everett Yorn as well in tonight's American Snapshot. That is our time.